It's a very glamorous line, the restaurant industry. But believe me, if anyone asks me that they want to open restaurant, I really feel bad for that person because I have actually seen people losing 3-4 crores in less than 2-3 months time. And that was decent restaurant, not like very fancy restaurant. Our margins are not much. You know, if a restaurant is doing really well, for your information, the margins are only 15% EBITDA. And 15%, that means you're a very successful restaurant. It's not that we have revenues and multiples of 100% profit. खाना ही तो है क्या है 20 रुपए का बनता है 200 रुपए में बेचते हैं 150 रुपया पॉकेट में और तो you know I've not from any B schools or done any MBAs, though I definitely have the desire now to probably enroll into a master's program in probably a couple of years to ensure that what I've learned in the last 12-13 years, you know, I could really relate to all the management terms. Because if I would have done probably personally in my case an MBA directly out of my high school or my undergraduation, probably there was so much gyan, you know, then it gets lost over a period of time how to use it.
You must be thinking another pre-roll? Wait, let me just skip it. With Altuni, there are some boring things which you can avoid, like the long wait for promotions or increments or the numerous interviews before you land your dream job. At Altuni, we make sure that you're future ready and skilled to be in the top 0.5% class. Click on the link in the description now.
We had taken both loan from our parents and family offices to start this. You cannot just open restaurant or dilute the equity at that early level. So we then had to wait for around 2 years. And luckily by then DLF was touring, they had opened their asset called the Cyber Hub around 10 years back. And they were touring Mumbai, going to different restaurants because they wanted them also to be a part of DLF. And that is when, you know, one of the gentlemen came to Burma Burma. And then he proposed the idea, I think something like this would work really well in Delhi. I said, yaar, the Mumbai mein, yaar, it's difficult to manage. What in Delhi, we'll manage all the way, yaar.
So what happened that suddenly changed, turned things around in Gurgaon for you?
That is, I think, what we've realized over a period of so many years, the nature of the business and the nature of markets. No two markets are similar. Small fact, when we opened Noida, around 3 years back, and for the first year it was probably our lowest restaurant business in Delhi NCR. We have 3 currently. We have one in Select City Walk, one at Cyber Hub, one at Mall of India. So Noida was the lowest, and in fact since last 2 years it's even beating Cyber Hub because we've seen Noida also as a lot of residents from South Delhi, they move to Noida and bigger complexes, and how that entire vicinity has come up. So that's the beauty of, you know, different demographics. And of course in Cyber Hub, you know, we had few launch parties, people started coming in. Anyone who used to come to Burma Burma Cyber Hub, they used to get their parents like, wow. Because they come with zero expectation, right? They don't know anything about the food and their comfort is pizza, Chinese or Indian food. So when they actually have the food, they say, yeah, it's great. So a lot has to do, you know, with expectation. If you have a very high expectations, then you have to live up to that. But if someone comes with very low expectations and they find it really nice, they said, wow. So they got their family, friends. And that's how day on day, you know, we saw the business increasing and it left Mumbai. We almost doing double numbers of what we used to do in Mumbai in less than 2 months' time.
So Ankit, how do you decide that itna time main dunga is restaurant ko to pick up? Because obviously, like you said, every market is different. But there is no way to know in advance कि इसको 3 महीने लगेंगे pick up होने को या 15 दिन लगेंगे या 15 महीने लगेंगे. How did you come to that conclusion, or do you have some kind of a framework in mind that within this much time you will know whether a restaurant is successful or no?
So in the restaurant industry, usually people give around 3 months time. Luckily, we've been cash flow positive from month 1 at all our outlets wherever we've opened, luckily. But of course, we take a 3-month gestation period and then we analyze that, you know, what could be done more to ensure that the clients come. Because see, it's a 3-month, 4-month game for a restaurant. If your restaurant doesn't do well for 3-4 months time, and if it's not cash flow positive, you cannot as a company keep infusing money again and again. And by 5th month, probably you have to take a hard decision of shutting it down or probably doing some other alternate arrangements. It's a very glamorous line, the restaurant industry. But believe me, If anyone asks me that they want to open restaurant, I really feel bad for that person because I have actually seen people losing 3-4 crores in less than 2-3 months time. And that to a decent restaurant, not like very fancy restaurant. So I tell all the, youngsters or anyone who wants to get in the line that unless you have someone who's very strong from the field, the skill set, the theory, the practical experience, or you go and develop and harness and, generate those skills in you, and then definitely you should enter this line because, more than the money is waste of your time. It's okay. Money is liquid, you may lose 4-5 crores, you may have 20 crores, that's fine. But it's the cost of the time which gets, reduced and depleted, which is, paramount.
So what is the current scale at which you are operating? How big is Burma Burma? Whatever you can reveal publicly.
So we've been bootstrapped. We started in 2014. We've grown organically. Whenever the main markets of India open, we consider ourselves to be a lifestyle brand, not just a restaurant. And we only prefer to open in areas of the country where they are prime areas, right from Indiranagar, Bangalore to Park Street, Calcutta to Mumbai, Kala Ghoda, in Delhi NCR, Cyber Hub, be it Select City Walk, one of the highest rentals in Asia actually, and Mall of India. And so whenever new opportunities open up in India, and depending on the finances that we have, we take a decision to open there. Currently, we doing a net run rate of around 45 crore rupees. We are open only 7 hours a day, 12 to 3 and 7 to 11. And now we thought to take our first Series A round. How we've grown this much in 7 to 8 years of time is we've reinvested our own money and we've taken bank debt as well. We are a completely white collared company. We don't even enter or indulge in any practice which does not align with the government or the internal values. So that's why we developed a private limited company. Everything that we earn is tax paid for, which is not the case for many restaurants because a lot of them fall in the unorganized category. We shut at 11 o'clock. Now we are planning to raise our first Series A round to open around 12 more Burma Burmas. We've already geo-mapped the locations. And also a part of the funding that we're taking is that we've pivoted into a couple of new verticals in the last 3 years. In fact, the lockdown was the busiest time for us as a team, not because the restaurants were running and we were doing some great business. It's because there were two ways, either we talk about lockdowns and virus and all of it, and just waste our time for the 3 years, or that gave us a breathing period to reflect on what our current offering is, how to evolve it, so that's what we've been doing all throughout. And then we pivoted into FMCG space. So there are 9 products that we've launched and it's a completely new ecosystem. There's a new performance marketing team, there's a new food technologist team which is on board, which we manufacture at our Mumbai facility. There's a separate factory.
So what are the products in your FMCG?
So ready to eat lotus stem chips. We've got ready to eat khawswe paste. There are tea leaf paste, some Burmese seasoning, Burmese sauces. There are 9 products. And we've seen a 200% growth month on month. We just launched around 3 months back. And this is what, we are really, really, bullish on, excited about. And this wouldn't have happened if lockdown wasn't in place. Secondly, I think the great thing what happened in lockdown is that what our delivery sale, because see, Burma Burma is an experiential dining. Anyone wants to eat at Burma Burma, they said, yeah, why to call at home? Let's just go to the restaurant and let's just wait whatever time it is, but let's eat at the restaurant. But in the lockdown, the behavioral pattern changed where they were forced to order. There was no other way to dine in. And that's the time when, we went on to the packaging and they said, wow, Burma Burma at home also is not that bad. It's almost similar to what they eat at the restaurant. So delivery business increased from 5% to 22%. And it has stayed constant ever since, even when the markets opened up. So I think in the long term, when I see, it's very, very beneficial for us. But yes, having said that, lockdown was very, very difficult. But I think when you have strong companies, strong work ethics, transparent HR policies, because they also know the vendors, the landlords and the team that, that it's going through a rough time, especially the service industry, all supported. Talking about the landlords, my vendors, all gave us that support and the cushioning. And that's why we were able to reopen. And none of the outlets shut in the last 3-4 years. We've only been open.
I just hope whoever is watching this on YouTube or any of you here, this is not, ये कोई MBA school में you can't learn this shit. And I'm not even exaggerating. It's very hard to do what these guys do, and you don't need to go to a B school to do this either. It's just, I mean, at least as an entrepreneur, I feel a lot of this is super inspiring. And I don't know what all you can inculcate from this, but this is really good, precious insight. An important part of your business is training. How do you ensure that there is a high level of service across so many outlets? How have you built a SOP? What have you done to ensure that people are, and I've experienced it, so I can vouch for the fact that I've had a fabulous experience in every single outlet of yours. But how have you managed to do that?
I've not from any B schools or done any MBAs, though I definitely have the desire now to probably enroll into a master's program in probably a couple of years to ensure that what I've learned in the last 12, 13 years, I could really relate to all the management terms. Because if I would have done probably personally in my case, an MBA directly out of my high school or my undergraduation, probably there was so much gyan, then it gets lost over a period of time how to use it. So I personally feel that when I do in the next 1-2 years, I could really take the most out of that master's program. But I definitely, because I've not done any masters along the way, there were some, shortcomings in the organization where I thought, so that's the time where I made use of a lot of consultants, who are masters in their field. So if you can't be a master at everything, so that's the time where they came in, we developed the recipes, the standardization. And luckily for us, we work with a lot of team members in the kitchen who are from Nepal. Because they're not from the country, they can move all over. And we had this beautiful ecosystem. So whenever new outlet used to open, a lot of the team members who were in the kitchen, they used to be ready to take the next position and go to a new city. Because they've been trained in the system, they were able to replicate the same flavor profile in the different city as well. Now, one is the skill part. The second is we have around 10 stores all over India. Every day there are so many trucks of Burmese food products that goes around to different cities just to ensure that that right ingredient, if you're not getting the same flavor, we ship it from Mumbai. Like I'll tell you, roasted gram flour. What we get here, probably the one which you get in Mumbai has a better taste. So we ensure that the gram flour that we use comes from Mumbai. So that way the consistency in taste with regards to the ingredients were followed. And the third part is the human element. So personally, what I look into in the company is training. So everywhere the restaurant opens, 2-3 months, I shift my base. Because we don't open restaurants like we probably once a year or once in 6 months. I personally, because that's what I think one of my fortes is to train and the learning and development part of it. So every city that I go to, 3-4 days per outlet in a month. So I ensure that, I sit with all the new team members and old team members and we give that particular training or service and the food. We have a very lean organization as well. We don't believe in a lot of hierarchies in the company. There are only 6-7 corporate team members who run the entire show as of now. So I think that also really helps in the decision making.
I'm just so glad that you spoke about wanting to upskill yourself after 10-12 years. Just gives more validation for Altuni again. That even entrepreneurs who have done everything, running companies, worth crores, are saying that we humko aur seekhna hai. So we are going to enroll for programs and hopefully there'll be many more such people who will make use of platforms like ours as well. But let's move into the more, we've spoken about a lot of the physical stuff. Let's move into the digital stuff right now. How do you were talking about Zomato, right? So how do you manage reviews? People go and do all kinds of random things online. So how do you manage your online reputation? And how seriously do you take reviews? Do you sometimes ignore reviews because you're like, ye galat hai? And what impact does it have on the morale of your team?
We take reviews very, very seriously because it gives us the right direction to know what we are doing. If there are some common reviews of, this is not well, then definitely there's a lot of weightage to that comment. So we have a separate reputation management team who responds to all the reviews, primarily on Google, TripAdvisor and Zomato. These are the 3 platforms that and all the reviews which are below 4 is personally handled by myself and my few of my top team. They are not replied by, the reputation management company. Luckily, as of now, there aren't many of those which come, but every week or 10 days when we get certain time, we address that with our team, and then we also reply to the guest and take their details down to ensure that how recovery service we can do, whether to call them or send something to them. Because it's something which he's come, he's paid for, and he's not had a good service. So it's very, very important to take all reviews, critically. But there are, as Ankit said, that there are some times where there is lack of knowledge about the cuisine or the country, and for that they write a review. A lot of reviews we get 1 rating where the guest has not dined. The reservation staff was rude, so that's why it's a service industry. But the guest has actually not dined in the restaurant, which is incorrect, I feel. It's just basically like a trashing the restaurant out for not giving a table. But of course, we report that to Zomato and the team, and so a lot of times they even take the review out. But you can't do much. These are factors which are not in your control. But every review and the feedback needs to be taken, very critically. Whether right or wrong, but it's a feedback.
Ankit, are you scared of Swiggy and Zomato? In the sense that, given that people are ordering more online, you also now have cloud kitchens from where you deliver across India. And obviously there is this constant, people who know about you, they know about you. And there'll be some word of mouth that will happen. But obviously a lot of discovery of new cuisines and restaurants now happens via these apps. And obviously they will also want their share. So for example, the D2C industry on the FMCG and the other side are taking on the likes of Amazon and Flipkart by directly selling to the consumer via Instagram and Shopify. What are the steps that you are taking? First of all, is it an issue that, you're worried about the commissions that some of these aggregators will take? And if it is, what are the steps that, you or any of the other people in the industry are taking to reduce dependence on Swiggy and Zomato and the likes?
I think it's a great time to be an entrepreneur in India because you've got such a great ecosystem. There are services, last mile deliveries for everything. So, eventually the entrepreneur has to just focus on one thing, is to create a great product. The rest all can be outsourced, which wasn't the case probably 10, 12 years back. And I think Swiggy and Zomato is a huge part of the success of the restaurant industry in India. The headache of, managing manpower, the bike, the fuel, talking with the guest and delivering the food is all taken by a third party at probably a commission of just anywhere ranging from 10 to 20%, which is nothing. Probably you can just mark up in your food item, so it gets offsetted. So I think they are the reasons why a lot of restaurants survived in the lockdown, personally, even for me. Because we were only running on just delivery business, and Swiggy, Zomato and Thrive and other Dunzo delivery partners got us that money which we required, bare minimum, to run the engine of the company. Now, with regards to the competition, I feel it's always great to have competition, because A, you're always on your toes. B, you get a know-how of, what the other companies are doing, so that there's cross-sharing of information and learning. And thirdly, the most importantly, they make a market for you. If you're the only one doing this, then probably it's not a market. But there are so many people, like even in your space, the edtech space, I think there's room for so many, and whoever is doing a great job filling the actual needs, definitely the traction would be there for that company. In fact, for us, unfortunately, there have not been any Burmese restaurants in the organized space which has opened in the last 8 years. We really want a Burmese restaurant to open because A, it will promote the cuisine, the country itself. And secondly, they will make a market for us. Now, only we have to test new markets. Like if you want to open in Hyderabad, then we only have to take the risk of opening there. Suppose there's tomorrow another Burmese restaurant which has opened in some other area of Delhi where we are not there and is doing great business. We automatically know that when we open Burma Burma near to that restaurant, we'll also get a small pie of the business, right? Which is not the case sadly now. So, coming to the question, I think competition is always great, for any business because it helps you not to be complacent and always be on the toes, keep working on innovations and fixing your team and operations. And secondly, Swiggy, Zomato, Dunzo, whoever it is there, I think it's great. It only helps in increasing the business. And luckily for us, our commissions are very slightly low because our average order value is high. So that way, I think it's almost like negligible. So it doesn't really affect us.
Yeah, I mean, just to push this point a little further, I mean, obviously right now your brand is very strong and there is so much demand. At some point of time, do you think that they could have a higher negotiating power than you do, and they'll just say that, okay, sorry Ankit, but now we are going to just increase our commission to this. If you want, you continue. Otherwise, we'll have to take you off. I'm just giving you a hypothetical situation. Right. So, is there an alternative then? How do you then reach out to your customers?
There are always alternatives, because Swiggy, Zomato also, they are also in the fear of competition coming in day out. You know, you've got Dunzo, then you've got the direct to consumer like Thrive, you know, wherein you tie up with Shiprocket or some other companies to deliver your own food. So the power is in your hand completely. So that's always there. Even now Domino's is trying to enter into the space of Swiggy, Zomato, and trying to, you know, develop an engine to serve food from restaurant to consumers. But see, for them, they also know that, you know, if we pay commissions north of 20%, 25, 30%, then good restaurants will not come to that platform. Then they'll be left with only these small mom and pop stores, and that's not good for their brand building as well, because our margins are not much. You know, if a restaurant is doing really well, for your information, the margins are only 15% EBITDA. And 15%, that means you're a very successful restaurant. It's not that we have revenues and multiples of 100% profit. खाना ही तो है. क्या है, 20 रुपए का बनता है, 200 रुपए में बेचते हैं, 150 रुपया पॉकेट में, और तो doesn't work like that. If you're doing very well, because अगर ऐसा होता, then restaurant wouldn't have shut, right? Every time you see there are so many restaurants shutting, bars shutting, you know. So they also understand that Swiggy, Zomato, and that way it's managed.
Awesome. I think I'm going to open up the floor for questions now.
So back in college in microeconomics, Pindek, I studied one case study about pricing for a restaurant. It's very complicated. In fact, one of the main factors that I remember is competition benchmarking. And for a niche restaurant or a very premium restaurant like Burma Burma, you don't have a lot of alternatives, like you just mentioned. So how do you decide on the pricing? And is it more of a trial and error? You push the customer and see where the breaking point is, when you stop getting traction. Is that how you do it, or is there some cost plus thing happening? So that's question number one. Question number two is taking on Ankit's point, which is I understand that Swiggy and Zomato have gotten you the discovery, which might not have been there earlier. But just in terms of the logistics cost, right? Is it cheaper to like go through Thrive or through other food tech platforms where you get to own the customer journey, you want to own the customer data, and at the same time deliver to the customer, right? And you're reducing, like you mentioned, reducing dependence on these platforms, because at the end of the day, if you're able to do that part, then it's only the thing that's left is discovery, right? Which is what Google is doing, right? It's aiding all of the rest of hotels to like sell out their inventory through discovery and not through charging commissions, right? So I don't want to understand from a restaurateur's perspective, like, is it cheaper that way, or is Zomato Swiggy doing discovery plus delivery at a much cheaper rate? So those two questions.
First is pricing.
Got it. So I think great two questions. So coming back to the pricing, I mean, as you rightly said, when a new restaurant opens, it's slightly penetrative, you know, just to ensure that price should not be a factor for the guest to decide to come or not, you know. So we keep it slightly penetrative. And you know, rather than Burmese, you know, we consider as a category in what we are in. So we are more in a casual dining restaurant space, you know. So then we do the competition benchmarking of what all the restaurants in our space, you know, what they're keeping. Like for that example, in our case, you know, you have the soda bottle opener wala or some other restaurant. So accordingly, we know, you know, if the guests are coming to that place and they're ready to pay X amount for a starter or a main course, then I think we should also put somewhere around it. You cannot keep like double that. So there are multiple factors. One is the competition benchmarking. That's how I look into it. And then last thing is definitely the pricing, you know, the other way around. You know, a lot of people, they put so much management into it that, you know, X plus Y, and then the pricing should be there and this and that and all that. You know, I come from a very traditional sense. I know that if a customer is coming, whatever management funda you have, that is one side. But one thing is that he knows that, yeah, I can only afford this much. If I see a starter or a salad, I can't pay like 800 rupees, you know. It would be a factor for me to say, yaar, arey yaar, mehenga hai. I'm fine with a 400 rupees or a 300 rupees or a 500 rupees. So this is what you have to play with. And then you work on the backside of it to see the pricing of it and taking the fixed cost and the overhead cost and the other cost and add to it. But the margins, what we look at, food cost should not go beyond 30%. The food cost. That's the industry standard. Luckily, we are one of the lowest in the country. Our food cost is around 19-20% because we don't use any meat, fish. There's no cheese, there's no paneer, there's no milk, nothing. So it's basically vegetables and some masalas.
So 80% is for overheads.
Yeah. So 80% is all the other, so our margins are around 19-20% is what we're left with after corporate expenses. So that's the first question. Now, second question is, in the lockdown, definitely we tried owning the data by using platforms like Thrive and D2C. But, when you work with many partners from order taking to last mile delivery, when there are 3-4 different agencies which are not in the same parent company, definitely there's a lack in the effectiveness of the service. A lot of times the order you get it, but they are also dependent on some other partner to deliver the food. The riders call us and say, we are not coming, we don't want to come. Especially in Delhi NCR, where no one wants to enter inside a mall, go take the effort to go to the restaurant, take the parcel and deliver to the home. They just cancel it. What happens? It delays the order, right? It takes more time, 1 hour, 1.5 hours, which is not in our control. And as you know, if you want to eat your lunch or dinner at 7 o'clock or 1 o'clock, and you've ordered 1.5 hours below, and if you get the food at probably 2 o'clock or 8:30, 9 o'clock, automatically you're frustrated, your appetite goes and the experiences fall, which we've seen in our experience. Zomato and Swiggy, they have a great, tech platform. They have so many riders, they are probably ruling the entire space currently, and they run in a very efficient manner. So the only downside is that you're not able to own the data which they have, which in the last 4-5 years, they've done that. That's the only problem. But otherwise, when you talk about business, they are very effective. So you don't want to risk the owning the data part and the delivery of the food. Our main is not the owning the data part. Main is the delivery of the food, because anyways, we spend high amounts on discovery on these platforms. Also, we have our own direct to ordering platform, but when markets opened up, it just accounts for 5% or 6% of the sales. Because leave anything aside, consumers are so dependent on Zomato and Swiggy and other platforms in India that even if how much ever you tell them you come on the website, unless they are forced to, because they also trust the effectiveness of Zomato and Swiggy. So they also don't prefer to come on your website and order directly because of these certain problems.
A big round of applause, guys, for Ankit.
You must be thinking another pre-roll? Wait, let me just skip it. With all theory, there are some boring things which you can avoid, like the long wait for promotions or increments, or the numerous interviews before you land your dream job. At All Tuni, we make sure that you're future ready and skilled to be in the top 0.5% class. Click on the link in the description now.